I feel awkward now having to talk that. So actually, what I'll say is actually, actually how I first met Tobias was actually because he self-published his own sort of memoirs, as it were, under a slightly different title. I won't bother going into that right now. And I went, because it's very local to me, with your launch. It was actually, because I was living in Kew at the time, I'm still living in Kew. But anyway, it's just over the bridge in Chiswick, and it was, I think it was a Sunday or something. It was a day when, you know, there wasn't a lot on, and I saw this poster pinned on either a tree or a wall or something, saying, oh, there's this book launch thing. And I sort of just, I sort of thought, oh yeah, I'm going to wander over, why not? You know, so I didn't really sort of, you know, I didn't know what to expect and didn't know what was going to be the outcome of this or whatever. And I went there, and it was a little hall just on the other side of the bridge in Chiswick. And it was really sparsely populated when I got there. I mean, you know, this looks like a football crowd. It was like, you know, there was a few chairs. I mean, I was probably there a little bit earlier. It's a few, you know, the chairs were empty, basically. It's a few people. And people did trickle in, anyway. And and Toby Young, whose politics I have to say I'm not 100% in agreement with, to say the least, but Toby Young was actually, to give him his dues, I think he'd read a preliminary copy, and he'd offered to speak at this launch of Tobias' self-published memoirs. And he said,
can I just interject? Self-published, but I was offered a deal by a publishing house, but the terms are awful. So basically the terms weren't just awful. I was hamstrung. There were, you know, we hold on to your manuscript for 2.5 years. We give you 70 pence a copy. If we decide after 2.5 years to walk away from the deal, we can. So I was offered a deal. I walked away from the deal. Just wanted to make that point clear. Because sometimes when it's self-published, there's a kind of smell that kind of is associated with self-published books. But no, I'm a recognised author in the sense that it was good enough to be offered a deal. Continue.
It wasn't a big book launch. And basically, Toby Young said something to me, I always remember this, right? He said, he sort of, you know, he sat down with you, he very matter-of-factly said, you know, in my line of work, because for anyone who doesn't know here, back then I think he was probably just a journalist at the Spectator, but, you know, quite a highfalutin journalist, as it were. So he said to me, he said, in my line, said to the audience, when you're in my line of work, one of the worst things that can happen is somebody sends you a book, you read the first page, and you think, oh, bloody hell, I've got to read the first chapter now. He said, even worse than that, what happens is, somebody sends you a book, you read the first chapter, you say, oh no, I've got to read the whole book. And basically, from that moment on, I thought, I'm going to get a copy of that. I'm going to get a copy of that at the end of this thing. And more people trickled in, and it was all, you know, there was further conversation, Tobias himself spoke and so on and so forth. And I took it home, and I knew exactly what Toby Young had meant. Because essentially, you read the first page and you think, oh no, I've got to know what happens there, got to know it. I mean, this isn't just a page turner. This is really, you have to know. I can't, you know, it's one of those sort of compelling tales, and there's something about the dynamism or the fact that it's a true story that elevates it beyond sort of, you know, something anyone could make up. And it's equally as startling and entertaining as anything anyone could make up, if not more so, actually. So anyway, so I kind of sat on it for a long time, and I actually got in touch with Tobias, and we did some work on the graphics and the cover and so on and so forth. But I was also, you know, I was in touch with Tobias, and although Tobias was selling his book online and so on, I just thought, you know, this really needs to, we can do something with this. I don't know what quite yet. And the germ of the idea was forming, and I was at the time I was sort of practicing in different art styles, because actually I'm more of a cartoonist in the sense that my stuff was all well, it still is like very, very jokey stuff. And I was actually attempting to draw it in a more sophisticated way. And I thought, two things sort of came together. And I thought, well, why, if I'm going to try and do something in a comic book vein, why don't I do like the best story I've read in the last 10, God knows how many years, 20 years. And that's how this came about. And I chatted with Tobias, and I collaborated with Tobias, and we got the thing up and running. And slowly but surely, it sort of started to form into something. And I'm really pleased that it's kind of been made into a graphic novel and so on now. It's been a bit of a long, winding journey, and it's kind of, I think it's all come together, and I think it's unusual in the sense that I'm really interested now to see what people make of this, because with the writing alone, I am sure that people are going to go, wow, this is really interesting and compelling. with the illustrations as well, as Tobias said, I think this could like broaden things out. So people who perhaps aren't avid readers, who aren't so, don't regularly pick up books, could pick up on it as well. So I've just got a feeling that we could have lit a fuse here, and that basically it could, with the right sort of luck and all the rest of it that you need in this world, I think it could go somewhere, I really do. But I think it just needs to the word needs to be spread. So perhaps you could be the sort of the forerunners of that, you guys here tonight. And and that's all I've got to say really.
I just want to add one final point. The history of this country, there's so many layers to the history of this country. And unfortunately, unless it's common people such as myself, ourselves, are recording our history, we're only going to hear the history of the great and the good. And this is really important, because if we don't have average people writing their history, let me just give you one example. It's not very nice, and hopefully nobody's it's going to spoil your tummies. One area that we're going to get to is slopping out. Anybody here know what slopping out is? Yeah? So you know what slopping out is. In the UK, in prisons, if you were in prison, if you wished to use the toilets, there were no toilets in the prisons in the, preceding the 90s, the 80s and 70s. So what you had was a jug, and that jug was for number ones and for number twos. And for number ones and number twos, and then you would be allowed opened up in the morning, and then you would be allowed to empty your jug. So the practice was called slopping out. Now, of course, some people would have a call of nature, I really do apologise for the detail, in the middle of the night, and then had an option. You could either balance this jug and perform the action, or you could perform the action on a magazine, usually a porn magazine if it's in prison, and then you would kind of try and tie it up, and then throughout the night you would hear a sound. Anybody ever dropped a kebab or a bag of chips? That would be the sound you would hear from your window throughout the evening. And in the morning, the prison officer would make an announcement, and we would call it the bomb squad. We would call it, they would use the term outside cleaners, but the term actually was bomb squad. And the bomb squad were people who had to go out and pick up what we would, or the other term, sorry boys, by the way, you can cover your ears, we would call it the shit parcel patrol. And it would be their job to go around the outside and perimeter of the prison and collect these parcels and put them in. I mean, an aspect of British history. Not very nice, no longer happens, but just these little areas, which if we don't have them written down by people, they're missed.
So there's the sort of thing that writers can't make up. You can't make it up. You can't think to yourself, oh, here's an angle. It has to be,
So British history, so important. We've got to, all of us, and even there may be people here tonight who have not considered sitting down and recording their history. But honestly, there'll be maybe areas, just one final point, one final point I want to mention to you. One final point. If you in the 70s and 80s didn't have any money and you wanted to get home, what did you do? Anybody remember what you could do? You could give the bus driver your address. Imagine that. Certain areas of the UK, if you had no money, you gave the bus driver your address. I mean, again, that's written down in a graphic novel. It's just amazing, these little slices of British history which are no longer available, which you do not think about. You get on the bus, I live at so-and-so. Okay, fine, on you go. I mean, amazing. So there you go, sorry, I'll stop now.
Thank you very much, guys. There's some more drinks behind you. As I said, the book's in the foyer. The exhibition now has a bed in it, so if you haven't seen it yet, if you want to sleep, then
after those speeches,
we'll close at some point and we'll find you tomorrow morning. So, but yes, enjoy yourselves for the rest of the evening, and thank you very much again to everyone. Thank you.